Cool. It's been a pretty exciting kickoff so far. The morning session was great. Ruben and his team from San Marcos had a great presentation. So happy to close things out here. Today, I'm going to show you how we use the Webgrants portal to develop a FAFSA completion system. And the reason I add FAFSA completion system is because we use the reports in there. We merge them with some demographic reports in our district to go and combine them together. And I'll walk through the technical and the why. So about me, my name is Jason Marr. I'm a district resource counselor for San Diego Unified School District. There's about 3 of us that support all 99 high school counselors, about roughly 24 high schools. And one thing I wanted to find out with you guys is in the chat box, could you let me know if you're a site counselor, a district level counselor, or a site administrator or district administrator, or other? And if you're other, write in the chat box for me what level you come from. Site counselor, district counselor, site administrator, or district administrator. And Anna Sorensen, yes, please, that'd be great. All right, district administrator, but counselor for life. I love that, Tracy. A lot of site counselors. All right, I just want to make sure that I'm speaking to sort of all the levels here to make sure this presentation is worthwhile. And I'll try to make some analogies that could work at both the district level and then at the site level. All right, so I think the majority are site counselors. So, all right, so I'm going to show you our process in San Diego Unified. I'll share my favorite reports and Webgrants. I'll do a live demonstration of putting some of the pieces together, and then we'll end with a Q&A. And let's get started. So in San Diego Unified, we have a lot of high schools, about 24, 99 school counselors, roughly 6,000, 7,000 seniors. And so we knew we needed to develop a system in order to have a comprehensive approach to tackling FAFSA completion. So I kind of just came up with an acronym. It was STAR, the STAR method. So we're going to define our steps, create a timeline, and assign roles. And so, I didn't try to make it complicated. I didn't try to reinvent the wheel here, but we were going to pull a report every Friday out of Webgrants. We're going to merge the data. I'll show you what this means later, technically in Google Sheets. And then every Monday, we sent a file to every counselor at every high school that showed them every single student on their caseload who completed the FAFSA, who did not, and who had an issue. We also provided resources. So we gave them a video tutorial on how to complete the FAFSA. YouTube's fantastic for this because that's how I got last year's. There's always someone by October, like 1st by 5 p.m. that has already filled out the entire FAFSA and did a video recording. So definitely use YouTube for that. And then there are also handouts that are created. And then we also have workshops often provided by our community college partners, our higher ed partners, and also our nonprofits like CalSoap. And then we engage and motivated through data storytelling. And I'll elaborate on that later. Our timeline, again, this was a weekly thing. We built it into our calendars at the district level, and our site counselors could expect every Monday to get a report. We did this from January to June of last year and the year prior. That timeline is gonna look different this year. We're starting in October. And then we did a heavy push in mid-February. And then our roles, our site counselors were ultimately responsible for helping their students complete their FAFSA or CADA. The district counselors, we identified the students for them. We brought it down to the granular detail. We wanted it to be easy for the counselor to know which student and what their status was. Anytime we can remove an administrative task off their plate, we like doing that. That way you can spend more time with students. Our registrars were super helpful with fixing students with matching problems. And I'll touch upon that in this presentation also. Sometimes what they wrote on their FAFSA or CADA does not line up with the GPA uploads. And then we really leverage our partners. We have Upward Bound programs. We have TRIO programs. We have college institutes. We have CalSoap, higher ed partners, community college partners. And we really leaned on them to support our work as well. This was a silly visual I had created when I was building the slide. It was sort of a top-down approach. We did a lot of the analysis. We provided weekly reports. We gave them access to resources. We motivated and engaged through data storytelling, and we provided the FAFSA status for each student. All right. So I want to just quickly touch upon how we motivated and engaged. One thing I learned working at the district level is that principals are extraordinarily competitive, and counselors are competitive as well. And so in conjunction with my boss, because she's an administrator, she has a school administrative experience, she would present at the high school principal meetings, and she would share the FAFSA completion progress. You're looking at our report from March 2nd, but we were doing reports in January and February. Essentially what we did is I took information from the Race to Submit dashboard. If you want to know what that is, I have a link here on the slide, the Race to Submit dashboard, and it gives you a good overall progress update of how many students at your school have completed the FAFSA or not. And what I did to make it fair was I combined the schools by their enrollment size, because it wouldn't be fair to compare a school with 50 seniors and a school that had 500. That level of work looks different, and if you get 5 students at the school with 50 seniors, it's a 10% change right there. So we grouped them into enrollment size to make it a little bit more fair and a little less pushback. And as you can see, we just have various high schools all grouped together. I wanted to pause here just for a little tangent. One thing that we learned during COVID is that our schools north of the 8 freeway for us, where we have higher income communities, they actually saw a double-digit percentage point increase in FAFSA and K to completion during COVID. This whole online learning, technology, everything. And our school south of the 8 freeway, where we have more low-income communities, they actually saw a double-digit decrease, a double-digit percentage point decrease in FAFSA and K to completion. And so we learned something from that, and that in these communities, doing technology for everything was not an effective strategy for them. And being able to do outreach, even when it came to like attendance and homework completion, it was much tougher in our lower income communities. And so luckily we don't have to deal with that this year so far, but that did teach us a lesson for the future. And so something that we reflected on last year was that we thought it would be important to write a policy document from the district level to encourage sites that this is important. We didn't write the policy document, but we are going to write a memo, and we are going to have communication coming from the district level to show the importance. I think the Assembly bill, I believe it's 130 or 132, which is going to make FAFSA a graduation requirement, or you have to opt out. That's kind of a policy document all in itself, so that takes care of it for the following year. So, but we do know now that we need to put things in place this year in order to be prepared for it next year. The other thing we learned is that oftentimes our counselors were trying to really push FAFSA in January and February, but they got bottlenecked with articulation. As all the high school counselors on the call know, in January and February, you're doing articulation. And sometimes, it's every single day, classrooms coming in, one-on-one conversations with kids, whatever it looks like, there's a bandwidth problem. And it's really hard to dedicate a lot of hours towards FAFSA and K to completion when you're also trying to take care of articulation. So this year, we are going to have a hard push in October, November, and December, and that we're expecting January and February to be a cleaning up period. Just trying to find the few students that haven't completed it yet, and also to fix any matching problems in the system. All right, any questions before I go on to my favorite reports? No, no questions? All right. All right, so if you don't have access to Webgrants, click this link, and then you're gonna click this file, Webgrants System Administrator Access Request, fill it out, and then turn it in based on the instructions on there. There is a little bit of a delay in order to send it and get it approved and bring it back. So if you don't have access yet, I do recommend getting that filled out and turned in as soon as possible. And there are instructions to turn it into CSAC. And then I think what I can do is I'll just log into Webgrants for now. Show you up to a certain point. I don't want to bring up any data files for schools in particular, just because of the privacy concerns, but I will show you from the login stages up to a certain point. So we're going to log in here. Got my username, my password already. We're going to sign in. And they do have a new user layout. So I'm actually very happy that Tanya asked me to do this presentation, because the user interface looks a little different this year than last year. And so it forced me to learn the new user layout. The data transfer tab is where you go to pull the reports. This non-SSN GPA tab, that's used by our registrars to upload GPAs. This feature is to do the batch upload. This add feature is to do individual students. And if there is matching problems, you can go here to go in, and you kind of have to act like a detective to identify, how did they spell their first name on the FAFSA CADA, and then how was it uploaded into our system? And sometimes it's a first or last name, sometimes it's an address problem, but that's the sort of the detective work that has to happen sometimes with matching. All right, so I'm going to go to data transfer. You're going to select report downloaded. And if I go fast, don't worry, this will be recorded and shared with you, so you can pause and play all you need. This is what your layout should look like. On an individual school level, it'll probably default to your single school. But because I have district level access, I get to see all the schools in San Diego Unified. So I can select one of them. I'm going to stick to the 2021-2022 school year. And I just leave the month as all, media type all, and report as all. I hit search. And then it provides me a list of options, a list of reports. And so let me go in and show you which ones that I tend to use the most. The first one here in green is called the financial application, no GPA report. The red one's non-SSN GPA status report. If you look here, it says report. And if you look here, it says data file. There is a difference, and I will explain that. And then here, the student summary report, that's my other favorite. And there's a data file and a report. So here's the financial application one. It's useful because it looks at applicants under the age of 20 who file a financial aid application and list your school as their high school attendance on their FAFSA or their CADA. And so it's looking and it says, okay, these students did their FAFSA or CADA, and it compares it against the GPAs that your school has uploaded. And if no GPA is found, then students are placed onto this report. So this means that our registrars are going to go in and they need to upload that student's GPA, whether that's in a batch or individually. And this way, we can catch scenarios where a student's GPA is not uploaded. Keep in mind, though, there is a lag time between the time a student hits submit on their FAFSA or CADA and when Webgrants updates its records. There is a little bit of a delay. I don't have an exact time frame of the delay, but I know it doesn't happen overnight. So this report is super helpful to find kids who did their FAFSA and CADA but don't have a GPA uploaded yet. And they need that GPA for the Cal grant. All right. Next report is the student summary report. You are looking at the report file type, and you'll know it's a report file because it has these headings. These headings are are actually not useful when you go to copy and paste into Excel or Google Sheet. But the headings are useful to know how to structure the columns. I had to block out the state student ID number, last name, first name, and date of birth. But it's helpful to see our GPAs. We know their graduation projected date, the GPA type. Oftentimes it's the non-social security number, and the method. Was it a batch? And it tells you the bid ID number, or if it's added individually. And what it does is it tells us the application status and award status. So Cal Grant award status. And here's a legend for this report at the bottom of the file. And it tells me if it's a yes, the application was received on time with an expected family contribution. If it was late, it tells me if no EFC, which is very useful to know because then there's probably an issue on their FAFSA or CADA that needs to be resolved. And then if it says none, then we know which students we want to target to help complete their FAFSA. All right, taking a quick glance at the chat box, nothing yet. All right, so I had mentioned that the report file type has these headings, but when you go to copy and paste into Excel or Google Sheets, it's really hard technically to make it work. So I do recommend always downloading the file type. The data file type. It doesn't give you any headings. It just has the raw data. So I select it all and I copy and paste it into Google Sheets or in Excel. And then I can play with it from there. And then the report that I use the most here in San Diego Unified, because we are trying to do it for all roughly 7,000 seniors, is the non-social security number GPA status report. This one will tell me, it'll provide the student's state ID, but it'll also provide the student's school ID. And that's helpful when I go to merge with two different spreadsheets. It tells me if there's a match that the GPA upload matched with their FAFSA or CADA. It'll tell me if it did not match, and then it'll also sometimes say no, and then tell me in this matched fields column what was matched. It doesn't tell me what wasn't, but it tells me what was matched. And I'll show you what I mean. Right here it says no, and it says last name, first name, and INIT were matched. So that means other things were not matched. And so now our registrar will go in and try to fix that matching. Sometimes it's a issue where the student has to correct something on their FAFSA or CADA, and so they have to fix something that way. But if we do see students in this situation, we do know that we have to do a little detective work to find out what's going on. All right. And then within the Webgrants database in the top right-hand corner, there's a help button. This is pretty helpful if you want to find any user guides for some of the more technical tasks. And so for the non-social security number, GPA matching and edit screens, that's when you have to do a little detective work. They have like a 30-page manual of how to go in, how to search, how to find the students, and they give you examples on how to fix any potential problems. Most of the time we notice there's just a difference on how the student spelled their name on their FAFSA or CADA and how we have uploaded their spelling of their name into the Webgrants database. Because our district does all the uploads for the school in batches. All right. All right, so before I do a live demonstration, I'm going to answer a quick question in the chat. Do you just copy pasted Google Excel? Short answer is yes. I've always had to download as a text file and then open in Excel and adjust columns. That is correct, Lou. So I'll get into it and I'll see if I can hopefully show you guys how to do it here. All right, live demonstration. So here in the Webgrants, let's say I downloaded the status report. I had mentioned this is the one that I used most often. and I need the data file. As Lou mentioned, it does come in a text file. I can't load the text file without the student's personal identifying information showing, but he is correct. I will select all, I will copy, and then I'll bring it over here to Google Sheets, and I'll paste into Google Sheets. And so when I paste into Google Sheets, for whatever reason, Webgrants won't split like the last name in a column, first name in a column, date of birth in a column, GPA in a column, grad date in a column, etc. All the values are in one column. And so after you hit paste, you'll go to data and say split text to columns. It's going to give you a choice to detect automatically. And every time I've done it in Google Sheets, it automatically breaks up the last name in its own column, first name, and all the rest of the variables. So it does it automatically. But the key is to do data split text to columns. I got rid of last name and first name just again so we can't identify any students. I also got rid of their state student ID numbers and student ID. But the report will give me that information, and then they'll tell me if what their FAFSA status is. Yes, no app, or sometimes it'll tell me no, there's a matching problem with last name, first name, and then the initial. And so what I want to do when I share it with my school counselors is I want to break it down on their caseload. And so in our SIS software, we use PowerSchool, but I know every SIS has this capability is you can download a report, just a simple demographic report that includes, at the very least, student ID numbers. If you can get state student ID numbers, that's even better. But if not, at least your student ID numbers, and then their last name, first name, and then whatever other variable you want. It could be gender, could be date of birth, EL proficiency level, their ethnicity. We include counselor in there because, again, we're doing it from the district level and we're sharing it with the counselors at the site. We can also identify who's in special education. So if we did a little disaggregation, we can see who's completed it, if they are a SPED student or if they're not a SPED student. So right now I'm going to get a little bit technical on how I merge this spreadsheet with this spreadsheet. But again, it's recorded, so we'll be able to look back. So again, the reason I said you want to get at least the student ID number or the state student ID number is you need an identifier that is the exact same as how it's housed in your student information system. One thing that I've noticed is how our spellings of names are in PowerSchool does not always match the exact spelling of how it works in Webgrants. There could be like the middle initial included with a name, or it could be last name, first name, where the other way it's first name, last name. And so then it becomes a poor identifier because they're not exact. But the student ID numbers are exact. So again, I had to delete it just for privacy. And so I'm just going to use student 1 for now. That's my identifier. I'm going to actually create a new column on my demographic report. It's going to be called FAFSA status. In this column, I'm going to write a formula. I start off with putting the equal sign, and then I spell the word V lookup, VLLOKUP. And then I'm going to open parentheses. And so now I want it to look up something. I'm going to look up this value, student 1. I'm going to hit comma. And I want to look up student 1 on this spreadsheet. And I'm going to tell it to start looking in column A. So I click column A. I hold the mouse, I drag it over to column I, and I let go. And then I'm going to hit comma. And then I have to count the amount of columns this is. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I hit 9, comma, I'm going to type the word false. You type the word false because you want it to look up for the exact spelling. I hit enter, and what it did was the formula told it to look up student 1 on this spreadsheet, and wherever student 1 is, put the value that's in this column. And then what I can do is double click this little box down here, or I could drag it to drag the formula all the way down. I double click that little box so it auto-populated the formula all the way down. If you can't figure out the clicking in the box, you could just drag the formula and wait till you get all the way down to the bottom of the screen. So another thing I have to do is, if you look in here that it says no app, but up here in this bar, it has the formula. I don't want the formula there because when it comes to analyzing it, it kind of gets messed up. So I highlight column B, I hit edit, copy, edit, paste special, and then values only. So I'm just pasting it over itself, but as you can see, it got rid of the formula, it's only the values. And then an additional thing that we do in San Diego Unified, I'll select all. Oh, I don't know how to select all. I could click that to select all. Or you can hit Control A. I want to do a pivot table so I can see what our values are by school and by counselor. So in this pivot table under rows, I'm going to hit school. And I'm going to add a row. The row that I'm going to add is the FAFSA status. And then under values, I have to add FAFSA status, and then I want to count A. So it's going to count A or count unique. And so then, I know this is a little technical, but it's very helpful if you're doing this from a district perspective, but even if you're a site-based counselor, it's really cool to use pivot tables to analyze your data a little bit closer. So on the left-hand side, you're going to see the names of the schools: Claremont, Crawford, Henry, Hoover, La Jolla, and then it's going to break down each category of the FAFSA status. So the students who have no application, there's 26. A matching problem with no last name, first name, or city, there's only 1 kid. And then for yes, students that have completed their FAFSA and the matching has worked, there's 118. So that's good to know. I can add things like, I can break it down by counselor, so then we can work with specific counselors to try to encourage them and have them motivate their students to complete their FAFSA. But if I was a school site counselor, and I would do this pivot table, I would look at my no apps, I'd hit the 26, and I can bring up the 26 students that don't have their application, their FAFSA or CADA application, and then I'm calling them into the office, or I'm connecting them with one of our partners, or I'm inviting them to a FAFSA workshop. That's how we do it from just sort of a technical level, how we use the Webgrants database. And that concludes the presentation thus far. I would like to answer some questions and answers, even if it's a technical related question. I want to make sure that that I can help you and support you guys in being able to navigate the Webgrants database and being able to pull your reports and analyzing it quickly.
Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead, Tracy.
That was amazing. Thank you for the step-by-step walkthrough. Once you have that set up and you say you're doing this every Friday, are all those things kind of already set up and you're just repopulating the data, or do you have to go through all of those steps every Friday?
We have to, I do all the steps every Friday. In our SIS system, we actually have a internal credit check tool that a computer science teacher built, but there's a report. At the click of a button, I have a demographic report for every single student in our district. So it's like one click, and then essentially this report is done. And then we do need people, and we take turns because there's 3 people on my team. Erin Sorensen from Cal Soap, she helped us out a lot last year. We'll just take turns every Friday, and we'll pull every single school's Webgrants report. We'll put it in one spreadsheet, and then we do the merging. So there is a little bit of work every Friday. But after we did it like the 4th time, it was kind of on autopilot.
Thank you.
Jason, I have a question. And hi, Tracy. I miss you. Jason, the steps on how I was good up until you split the columns, which I love that little split the columns thing. Didn't know that worked. And then the next step, I just got lost. The merging of the worksheets. Do you have written instructions on how to do that merging? Because I'm not going to go back and watch this video 20 times, but I need written instructions I can reference.
Got it. I don't have written instructions, but it's probably something I could create, and it'd probably help out.
It would really help out.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's not a question. Hi, Jason. Good job. Good job. This is Sharon. So the one thing that we did was we included the case managers in some aspects, so to kind of spread the wealth. So if a student did have an IEP and there was a transition, something that the case manager had the ability to bring that up in conversation, because part of it is we didn't want all counselors to kind of think that it rests solely with them. And we don't have a program where admin steps in to help with this process yet. So it was in addition with Cal Soap. So Anna, thank you with all your team. But just trying to utilize every aspect. And I think that was helpful for a lot of schools, because then they knew that they could just share that information with case managers and share it out.
That's a great point. I think in one school, they also leveraged their English learner coordinator on campus to work with seniors who still were designated English learners. It looks like in the chat box, someone mentioned they do something pretty similar and they add their support providers. That's something that we're going to incorporate this year, is using the support providers. I might just go directly to the support providers, because they are pretty particular on only working with their students on their caseload. But yeah, it's a great strategy. Any partner that you can leverage, and there seems to be a lot out there. And oftentimes, even like some like Cal Soap does their Cash for College financial aid workshops. They work with a majority of our schools, our high schools, not every single school, but a majority. But all students are invited to go to their Cash for College financial aid workshops. And so definitely talk to your partners that are out there to see who can, if they're doing a Zoom presentation, why can't you invite as many students as you want? Any questions related to the new Webgrants?
Do we know when the new dashboard, you might not know this, but when the new dashboard will be ready? Like as far as like our numbers and stuff? Is it October 1st, you think?
That's my understanding, is October 1st. Because I think, when are they taking? I think they take some, whatever enrollment numbers we had. Maybe it's October count that they take to update their enrollment numbers. They may take a September data file that we send up for your enrollment size. And then to my understanding, they start tracking FAFSA completions right away. So by like October 2nd, we should see changes on the race to submit dashboard. Navia, you have your hand raised.
Yes. So along with that question, is that based on a CalPADS upload, or where do they get that data?
Yeah, to my understanding, our research and data and accountability team is sending those uploads to CalPads, which then CSAC, I guess, pulls that information from.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I finished a little early, but if anyone would like me to go over something again, please let me know.
How about like your fantasy football? How's that going?
That's funny.
Actually, I have another question.
Yeah.
How, you're sending these reports out every Friday. I mean, did you see, do you believe this is the reason why your numbers increased so much? Like, do you feel like this report was being utilized the way you'd hoped? Was it hit or miss?
If I want to pad my own ego, absolutely. This is the reason you saw that we won the award.
I did.
The highest completion.
We're coming for you. I'm just saying.
I think anecdotally, I did hear from certain teams, especially my teams, that it was very helpful for them to just be given the roster of kids that they needed to work with. That was like one less thing they had to think about, to pull in the system and to figure out. And it's like, as you know, there's only so much energy the brain has during the day. And so I know one of my schools, University City, it was like a week and a half before the March 2nd deadline, and they didn't want to hear from me because they were in the middle of this big articulation week. And I waited to the end of their articulation when I knew they had this parent night. And so I sent them their update and I said, hey, there's only this many more students. What if you guys were able to get 10 more each by next Friday? And so I would send little reminders like that, trying to be specific. Mm-hmm. I have a decent relationship with some of them. And so I would say hey, Malo, you're not going to let Kim George have a higher completion rate, are you? Try to be playful and fun about it, only because I had a good relationship with them.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that here's something that I have learned is results tend to improve when we have our time and attention towards something. And so because this was a weekly, every Monday sort of thing, our counselors could expect it. Our time and attention was on it. Their time and attention, they were sending messages to their students. And so I remember my counselor saying, yeah, they messaged the same student 7 times. And by the 7th time, the student finally got it, but it's so yeah, I'm hoping it worked. I'm hoping we do even better this year.
Nice. I do know my schools with interns, that this was a project they gave the interns, and that they saw huge gains there as well. So that would be another suggestion, is if you have interns.
Yes. Yeah, interns, we got lucky with our partnership with Cal Soap. They have these college readiness coaches, and it's during FAFSA season, that's what they're doing nonstop. Calling kids in, trying to help them do the FAFSA. So it's a good partnership that we have. And Tracy, if you want some help trying to, develop a little system with the spreadsheets in your district, let me know.
You're already on speed dial, don't worry.
Nice. And I'll try to come up with a better VLOOKUP tutorial, because it's a very useful formula to be able to merge multiple data sets, because whenever you can work off one data set, it's definitely much easier.
But your first thing that we should be doing is figuring out how to get that report from our student information system.
Yeah,
right?
It's
Okay.
sort of a global, all schools, every student report. And typically your IT department can set it up one time. They just figure out what variables they can save the query. But yeah, grab as many variables as you can, like EL, counselor, special education status, because it's kind of helpful later on to learn things from that.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Counselor Ali Serta, absolutely. I'll do a VLOOKUP tutorial. Yeah, and I like the new Webgrants. It is slightly easier on the eye, I will say that. And then downloading the reports is super simple. Just remember the data files are much easier to use when you copy and paste into Excel or Google Sheets. And just remember to do that text to columns feature. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I think we have reached 2:45. Thank you all again for putting me in your schedule today. Please reach out. Oh, I didn't leave my email. I'm going to throw it on the. I'm going to throw my email on the presentation real fast. Mar@sandy.net. And yeah, reach out anytime if you want to geek out over this stuff. I enjoy doing it, and see how we can just keep improving FAFSA completion rates. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason. Hasta la vista, babe.
Bye.
Bye.